Let's say your prices are not very competitive. You don't have an advantage in terms of delivery and logistics. Maybe even your product isn't perfect. But it still doesn't mean you don't have a chance to generate high sales figures. In fact, these are not the most important things. What matters and what each salesperson has an influence on is building good relationship with their clients. But let's start with what sales relationships really are. Let me use an example here. One day I had a meeting with the owner of a company, a subcontractor at one of the large construction sites. This company had a package of construction works where I wanted to deliver some building materials. A few days earlier, I got information from my friend that the owner of this company is an angler enthusiast. Not only does he enjoy fishing, but he's a national champion in float fishing, which is a kind of sports discipline. I wasn't a fan of spending my time like this, but I had some knowledge because I used to go fishing regularly with my father, and also I read professional magazines at some point of my life. Definitely I knew what it was about. So I thought it might be a great hook for catching a good rapport with this particular guy. We started a conversation about won competitions, techniques, tricks, about how to get an advantage over competitors. It was an intense conversation and lasted over 2 hours. What was the outcome? Totally wasted time, no sales. Not to mention I got bored at this conversation. I just realized that I wasn't interested in it at all. I told that story because people often have a misconception about relationship in sales, and I have misinterpreted this as well. When I started working sales, working on the industrial and commercial investment market, selling electrotechnical materials for investors, general contractors and subcontractors, I watched older, experienced colleagues, and what I noticed at the very beginning is that they had very good relationship with their clients. Some meet even after work and spend their free time together. It's obvious that having so close contacts, the question of price goes to the second track. When having a relationship, you provide practically everything that your client needs. And the only thing you worry about is the credit limit if you don't want to take a big risk in the case the client gets into financial troubles. And yes, I've been doing this myself for a while too, and I can't say it doesn't work. What you need is the right company, find the decision maker, make friends with him, and you gain an advantage over the competition. And it's not like that most people think that either someone like us or not, and you don't have much influence on it. Humans are very complex and at the same time very simple beings. And you don't need to flatter anyone, have the same interest, and agree with everything someone says. All what we need is to be aware of our own weaknesses and accept other people as they are, along with their own weaknesses. Focus on what unites us instead of differences. And although it sounds like cliché, in most cases nothing else is needed to find a common understanding and line of communication with most people. But after a few years, I noticed that this system, if I can call it like that, has many limitations. Willing to develop myself and my selling skills, I was striving for expansion. Moving to new, larger markets, to international markets. I wanted to work with the largest and best companies. So based on that, it's difficult to imagine spending a lot of time with so many prospects at the same time. Even arranging a dinner, I would have to eat 7 meals a day, 7 days a week, drink every evening, and basically I would have no time for anything else. That's why I try to find a system which helps me to build a good rapport and develop a relationship with a new client in the shortest possible way, without having to spend too much time on every single client. And it turned out to be possible and even easier than I initially thought. Here's how I see it. There are basically 3 factors you need to pay attention to: reliability, emotional intelligence, and consistency in performance. Most importantly, to get any results, it's necessary to work on all 3 of them at the same time. Reliability should be pretty clear. Being an expert in your field, you know what you are selling and you are able to suggest the best solution for your client's problem. You keep your word and promises. You don't try to trick anyone into buy things they don't really need. You provide the highest standard of customer service and take care of the client's affairs as if you were your own. So, if you have any supplier with whose services you are perfectly satisfied, it can be a salesperson, your local store, car dealer, whoever you buy anything from and you are happy about it, just think why this is happening and try to adopt a similar approach to your own clients. Next is emotional intelligence. It's something much more complex. So let's try to illustrate it with another example. Suppose you sit in front of the man you have just met. Even though the meeting was set up much earlier, you can sense that he is in his thoughts elsewhere. He's distracted. Glances at his watch, it's clear that something is bothering him. Which means he's not focused on what you are saying and there's no chance of building any kind of rapport, probably do any business. He's just elsewhere, even though he's sitting in front of you. You can guess that he doesn't want to hear about your product, your company. Even he says it's not the case and pretends to be interested. First of all, forget about doing business if you find yourself in a similar situation. It just won't work. Even if your prospect insists to continue the meeting, it doesn't make sense to talk about your business proposal. What you can do being in that position is to move on to topics loosely related to understand who you are dealing with, what kind of person your prospect is, and what style of conversation works the best. The point is to let go of the pressure. If you are a professional, you shouldn't care to say everything you had to say. The highest goal is to understand the client's needs and decision-making process. So if something is not going as you imagine, you have to change your agenda. In this case, it's better to make a short small talk, leave a good first impression, make an arrangement for the next meeting, than trying to continue a meeting with someone who doesn't want to be there. And this is more or less emotional intelligence in sales. The point is to leave impression when you're leaving someone's office. He's a good guy and I want to meet him again. Not the sigh of relief that you were already gone. That's why treat each new meeting as an opportunity for self-expression and find something positive in every approach, no matter if it's a cold call, face-to-face meeting, whatever it is. This mindset changes how people are perceived by their environment. Instead of focusing on the results, focus on your inner state. Let a genuine smile appear on your face. When you hang out with your friends, meet family, one of the reasons you do so is because it's pleasure, it's fun, it's the nature of any social interaction. Business is no exception. It's equally important for both you and your client to feel good and relaxed. And reading people's emotions and managing your own are a tool for that. Finally, we have the last point, is consistency in performance. Reliability and emotional intelligence are one thing, but to build a relationship, you need an agenda, you need a plan. Everything that we have talked so far is useless if you will not have the opportunity to prove you are reliable, empathic, and emotionally stable. Building tight relationship requires contact with a new prospect, even if there is no cooperation between you yet and you don't make any business. Although our main goal is to keep the time to minimum, still it cannot be done right away and this process has its own steps. You need at least a few times talk to your prospect, ideally face to face. It would be great if that be in different circumstances and places. That's why it's necessary to develop the ability to leave the door open for the next contact. And what I mean by that, to lead the conversation in such a way that the next contact is a natural consequence of the current conversation. What's obvious, your client cannot feel trapped and you cannot be intrusive. He shouldn't be surprised when you call him again too. This would be a violation of the rules of emotional intelligence. Your answer, starting point, can and even should be different depending on who you are talking to. After all, people and circumstances are never the same. There can be thousands of reasons as long as they make sense. Showing samples, discussing the quotation, presenting new line of products, anything. The most important thing is not to cross the line of good taste. Once again, emotional intelligence. Your primary goal is to gather the most important information necessary to close the sale, and secondly, to build a relationship by showing reliability and empathy. Hope it's all clear. Building a relationship is not like math where adding 2 and 2 we get 4. It's a much more complex process, but over time it can be mastered and gives real and measurable results. I don't want to go into details too deep, not knowing if this is interesting to anyone, so please write your comments. I don't know if you like this video, so press whatever you want to press. If it's your first video on this channel, my name is Pavel. I've been in sales for over 15 years. I built a network of contact and sales from scratch several times in my career on the European market for companies operating in the industrial sector. If you want to develop selling and social skills, you don't feel confident enough with cold calling and meeting clients, you want to know how to build instant rapport with a new prospect, quickly close a sale, monetize that knowledge and gain financial freedom, please subscribe and see you soon.